Story from a while ago, but Michele Fiore. She's from Nevada.
Las Vegas City Councilwoman Michele Fiore says she will not run for governor, but she will run for Nevada State Treasurer. This is from her campaign video for governor back in October.
I'm sure everyone remembers this campaign video.
Gas prices are reasons behind running for treasurer. Fiore has served 2 terms in the Nevada legislature and has been on the Las Vegas City Council since 2017. She also served as mayor pro tem of Las Vegas, but stepped down in 2020 in the wake of racial and controversial comments she made during a Clark County Republican convention.
Oh, of course she made racial comments. Okay, so the main story here is that she was pardoned by Donald Trump.
Pardon comes days after a judge denied Fiore a new trial.
This is a story our 8 News Now investigators broke. Vanessa Murphy live in front of the federal courthouse after confirming the news with Fiore herself.
Well, this is the executive
God, why do they have so much background
clemency
noise?
signed by President Donald Trump, letting Michele Fiore off the hook. She was supposed to return to the federal courthouse here in a few weeks to learn her sentence. Not anymore. Well, where's the money?
So you tell me.
This was last year, before a jury convicted Michele Fiore for stealing money from memorials for slain Las Vegas Metro police officers. Fiore says she's a, quote, free woman, a vindicated soul whose prayers were heard. President Donald Trump pardoning Fiore Wednesday. She says she is grateful to the president, calls it an act of mercy, and also refers to, for nearly a decade, a federal machine determined to break her.
Sorry, I gotta break down her looks because they're too wild. What is this look? Like, I swear to God, if Sarah Palin and Donald Trump got 2 Vicks together, then it would be Michele Fiore.
Prosecutors from the Department of Justice demonstrated how Fiore raised money in the memory of officers Alan Beck and Igor Soldo, but spent the money on herself for expenses like rent, cosmetic procedures.
Cosmetic procedures? That's crazy.
And her daughter's
Cosmetic
wedding. Republican
procedures.
Governor Joe Lombardo testified against Fiore, the jury returning the guilty verdict in less than 2 hours here in October.
Do you want to comment on any emotions? Not the case, but just emotions right now.
I would love to, but so I'm going to take my attorney.
Oh my God. She's like, I can't, but I have my attorney here. Damn.
Advice and just not.
Fiore, no stranger to controversy during her political career, once a state lawmaker, then a city councilwoman and mayor pro tem, most recently a judge in Pahrump. Suspended from the bench due to her federal charges. Now she says she'll return to the bench after claims of injustice from the start.
What do you want to say to the widows? What do you want to say to the widows?
Why don't you ask the prosecutors?
Crazy.
I asked Fiore for an interview. She said she'll think about it. When I initially reached out via text message, she replied saying, quote, Vanessa, you need to get on your knees a little more, girl, end quote. By the way, Sigal Chattah was in the courtroom.
Whoa, that's insane. She texted her and said, okay, the reporter's name is Vanessa Murphy. And she said, Vanessa, you need to get on your knees more? What? That's okay. See, this is why I was like, we need to keep an eye on Michele Fiore because one, she was local governments. I mean, it's Las Vegas, but still, local government. And like, she's like, has so much power and influence and like has lots of people that, she has connections with. I mean, like, imagine if Donald Trump found, like out of one of the San Bernardino City Council members, like imagine if he pardoned one of them. That would be like such big news here. And I think it's crazy because, like these are just local or small time politicians. Like obviously she was running for governor. But, this is why I'm doing it, because we see too many shots like this of just a random person that you think, okay, they're just a council person for a city. Okay, granted, it is a pretty large city. Some cities in the Inland Empire, San Bernardino is pretty big. Riverside is pretty big. Again, going in, we're looking at Clarissa Cervantes yesterday. And she was in Riverside City Council and she had 2 DUIs, so it's like these politicians all get their start somewhere. And I think it's in your city council. And we need to be more aware of all of this craziness, because if not, then they're just going to turn into Michele Fiore and stealing money from officers' funds and using it for herself. It's crazy.
Was in the courtroom during Fiore's trial with her supporters. She was the Republican National Committee woman. Now she's the interim U.S. attorney. I asked for a comment. She declined.
Vanessa, thank you. Commissioners in Nye County first appointed Fiore to her judgeship, and then voters elected her to the position. That was last summer. Coming up at 4:30.
All right, so let's go ahead and read this actual Fox 11 article, because it gives all the details. Okay, so this is by Austin Williams, published April 24th, 2025. And the title of the article is Trump Pardons Nevada Lawmaker Who Used Slain Officer Memorial Funds for... Okay, so without a doubt, she did do it. Using funds meant for slain officer memorial on personal expenses, including cosmetic surgery. Fiore announced the pardon Thursday via Facebook, calling herself the target of a decade-long conspiracy. Prosecutors said she raised over $70,000. Fiore, who's 54, has long been a polarizing political figure in Nevada. Okay, so she was a member of the Nevada Assembly. So she was an assembly person from 2012 to 2016. So that was straight up the Obama years. And then what did she do after that? Okay, she became a member of the Las Vegas City Council, and she did that until 2022. But she was also mayor pro tem in Las Vegas. Crazy. She gained national attention for her vocal support of rancher Cliven Bundy and his followers during armed standoffs with federal agents in 2014. I don't even remember that. Cliven Bundy? I don't even. American cattle rancher known for his role in the 2014 Bundy standoff. Bundy has advocated a philosophy opposed to what he views as federal government overreach. Okay. But why were they standing off though? All right. The Bundy standoff was an armed confrontation between protesters and law enforcement that developed into a 20-year legal dispute between the United States Bureau of Land, BLM, and Cliven Bundy over unpaid grazing fees on federally owned land. The dispute started in 1993 when, in protest against changes to grazing rules, Bundy declined to renew his permit for cattle grazing on BLM-administered lands. Bundy continued to graze his cattle on public lands without a permit. In 1998, Bundy was prohibited from... Okay, blah, blah. Okay, so he's just like not following rules. Crazy. Okay, so he felt the need to have an armed standoff for that. More recently, Fiore has been suspended without pay from her judicial post due to her legal troubles. Amazing. In her statement, she said she has plans to return to the bench next week. The Nevada Commission on Judicial Discipline said it was aware of the pardon but offered no update yet on Fiore's suspension status. Okay, from the Las Vegas Sun, also from April 27th. But I figured this is a more local paper. All right, so this is an editorial written by who? Maybe it's just from the staff. Michele Fiore, unfit to return to judicial posts in Nye County. Okay, yeah. I agree, she was never fit for that. The word shameless doesn't begin to capture what Michele Fiore represents. A convicted felon who exploited the memory of murdered police officer to pay for her plastic surgery and her daughter's wedding now wants to reclaim her position as a justice of the peace in Nye County. This is not just wrong, it is a grotesque insult to the rule of law and the very idea of public service. The Nevada Commission on Judicial Discipline and Nevada legislator must act swiftly to ensure that Fiore never again dons a judicial robe. I was going to say, I don't know how she could fit under that robe with those big bazoongas. The Nevada Commission... Let us be clear. Fiore was unqualified to be judge even before her conviction. Thank you. She does not have a law degree. Her judicial appointment in 2022, after failing in her bid to become state treasurer, was already a troubling example of political cronyism in action. Like, who appointed her, though? But that was just once mere... but what was once merely unseemingly, has now metastasized into a crisis of legitimacy. Fiore is no longer just an unqualified judge, she is a convicted criminal. Her crime, soliciting over $70,000 in donations for a memorial statue to honor slain Las Vegas police officer Alan Beck, and then spending the money on herself. I mean, I want to know what kind of plastic surgery she got done. Because if only she, like, and how much was it? Because if she only collected 70,000, I don't know what she could have gotten done. But again, it's Las Vegas. I don't know how good the plastic surgery game is over there. The evidence presented in court was damning. Donors, including Governor Joe Lombardo, a fellow Republican, believed their money would pay tribute to the fallen heroes. Instead, it paid for Fiore's rent, cosmetic procedures, and wedding expenses for her daughter. This wasn't merely a violation of the law, it was a staggering betrayal of public trust. And yet, somehow it gets worse. Fiore was convicted and on charges similar to those that led disgraced former U.S. Representative George Santos. No, not George Santos. There he is. You remember this fabulous person who never did drag a day in his life. This fabulous person. Oh, God, it's a little too close. I think George Santos is the perfect example just how bad people can be in politics. And I don't mean like bad in their actions, but just like unfit, you know, like if there's anyone who didn't meet the job qualifications, is this dude right here. Is this dude. And I feel like we're about to see a lot more politicians like these two in the coming years because everything has just been insane lately. And you know, politics just don't mean what they used to before. Or I mean, like, people running for politics don't care. I don't know how true this is, but is one of my professors at school said a good amount of people who serve in government don't even know what American government is or like how it should properly function. So, you know, it's just, this is different times. All right. So Fiore was convicted on charges similar to those that led disgraced former U.S. Representative George Santos, who was sentenced Friday to 87 months in prison. Wait, 87 months. Let me do some calculations here. 7.25 years, so 7.25. So is he actually in prison then? Fiore is Nevada's own George Santos, in every bit as outrageous, every bit as out of control, every bit a liar. 1,000%. But Fiore will not have faced sentencing because on Wednesday, she received a full and unconditional presidential pardon from Donald Trump, a fellow partisan and convicted felon. The pardon came just 6 days after the federal judge rejected Fiore's request for a new trial. While the pardon power has historically served specific public interests, such as President Gerald Ford pardoning former President Richard Nixon to help the nation heal from Watergate, Trump offered no explanation. Yeah, at least Gerald Ford had to explain why he was pardoning Nixon, because everyone hated Nixon. Trump offered no explanation, public interest rationale, or acknowledgement of Fiore's crimes and the suffering she caused to the families of the fallen officer whose memory she exploited for personal gain. It was not justice, it was a political favor. Yup, she's gonna owe Trump big, I'm sure. Because, like, this is exactly like what the Trump administration is trying to do to Eric Adams. No, wait, why is he going to Las Vegas? I smell the money. Eric Adams heads to Las Vegas for Bitcoin conference after NYC crypto summit. Nope, I can't. Why are all these people getting into crypto? New York Times reported that FBI investigations into Adams was related in part to an allegation to alleged influence by the Turkish government to have a consulate in Manhattan building approved by New York City authorities without a fire inspection. Okay. Yeah. So they're investigating him. And I think the whole thing was that if Trump would basically pardon him or get out of having to do this trial and stuff, Trump wanted something from New York. Back to the Las Vegas Sun. A pardon, of course, is not an exoneration. It is not an acquittal. It does not erase the conviction. It's simply a get out of jail free card issued by a president or governor for state crimes. And importantly, Fiore's conviction still stands. The facts have not changed. She is still guilty of a crime that makes her categorically unfit to serve in any position of public authority, especially one that involves judging the actions of others. I big time agree with that. Her claim of being a vindicated soul is as ludicrous as it is offensive. Nothing about her conduct has been vindicated. Her story is not one of redemption, but of impunity. Big agree. And the idea that she could walk back into a courtroom, gavel in hand, as though none of this ever happened is a slap in the face to law enforcement officers, to the people of Nye County, and to every Nevadan. This is not a partisan issue. It is a moral and ethical one, a justice system that allows known fraudsters and con artists to sit in judgment of others is no justice system at all. Judicial officers must be held to the highest ethical standards. Fiore doesn't even come close. It's worth noting that Fiore's trajectory has long signaled where this was heading, from tax liens to racially inflammatory comments to conspiracy theories about cancer and the federal government. She's long embraced the chaos and opportunism that define far-right populism in the Trump era. Her pardon was not an act of grace, mercy or justice. It was a cynical reward for loyalty that is not unlike Trump's pardoning of violent January 6th insurrectionists who bashed police officers with fire extinguishers. It is a continuation of Trump's scorched earth campaign to delegitimize the rule of law. Yep, I called it earlier in the article. Nevada has a chance to say, not here, not in our courts. The Commission on Judicial Discipline must make it clear that no matter how powerful your political allies may be, you cannot use a fallen officer's memory to enrich yourself and then return to public office as if it never happened. We cannot undo a presidential pardon, but the integrity of Nevada's judiciary and the public's faith in that system depend on how we respond to it using the tools we do have. Michele Fiore may have escaped prison, but she should not escape all of the consequences of her disgusting acts of fraud. Let's see if we can find any more recent interviews with her. Oh, damn. Look at this video from her 9 years ago.
Police in this state know me and know me well. So for them to ever just jump off the bridge and go, oh, she's anti-cop. Like, really? I'm sorry, but they better check themselves before they wreck themselves.
Quite an animated character. She
said the cops better check themselves before they wreck themselves. What the frick? Damn.
13 Action News.
David, thank you. And as he just said, Fiore has so much more to say in her interview with 13 Action News.
She refused several requests from 8 News Now investigator Kyle Payne to sit down for a more formal Q&A. But today, well, he caught up with her.
This was a fake case, and the government knew it.
And you say you weren't convicted. Did you steal the money?
No, absolutely not, Kyle.
Did you?
Absolutely not.
Did you take charity money to pay for your daughter's wedding?
Kyle, goodbye.
Kyle, goodbye. Damn. Absolutely not, Kyle.
Goodbye, Kyle. Well, Fiore maintaining she is innocent of taking charitable donations and spending them on personal things like rent and cosmetic procedures. We said goodbye to Kyle, but Kyle's here with more. Kyle, good evening.
Okay, get rid of me, David.
Wait, I'm sorry. I need to see all these Las Vegas.
Get rid.
Kyle Payne, George Knapp, Vanessa Murphy. Oh yeah, she said you're gonna have to get on your knees, Vanessa. And David Charnes. Interesting.
David, Michele Fiore and I only got a couple questions in, but right before my interview, she sat down for an hour to do a radio show with political insider Tom Letizia, and Tom asked pointed questions of the controversial politician.
She's like, Michele, you're pardoned fully and unconditionally.
What was your reaction?
I cried. 40 minutes.
You just started crying.
I just started crying.
Why would you cry? Why would you cry? That's crazy.
Because, you know, knowing what I was going through, number one, For some reason, people think I have President Donald J. Trump on speed dial. I do not.
Michele Fiore may not
Bro, I bet she wishes she had Donald Trump on speed dial.
have the president on her speed dial, but after his
Like I bet she wishes she could be Pam Bondi. Like I think she wishes that's who she could be to Donald Trump.
presidential pardon of Fiore for 6 counts of wire fraud and 1 count of conspiracy earlier this year, he might be on her Christmas card list. Fiore says she and her attorney, Christina Wilderveld, filed for a pardon and sought no special treatment.
There was hundreds of questions to her from every attorney, all the DOJs, the White House attorneys.
Did you request the pardon directly, or Christina had to go through all the work?
Christina had to do everything from A to Z the way pardons work.
Okay, so there were a lot of people that said this was political favoritism.
Favoritism or otherwise, Fiore says the public doesn't know the truth.
It's very difficult. You know, a lot of people just see what the controlled mainstream media puts out. But it is very, very difficult. And I have to tell you that my strength and my inner strength literally is a gift from my mother. I was raised tough, and I was raised to never back down.
Let's see this one.
President Donald Trump has pardoned yet another loyalist who found himself in hot water with the law. We're talking about former Virginia Sheriff Scott Jenkins. He was convicted on fraud and bribery charges in March, sentenced to 10 years in prison. Well, a jury found him guilty of deputizing businessmen in exchange for cash in his county, but instead, President Trump's pardon power makes Jenkins a free man. Trump called Jenkins a victim of the Biden administration, claiming he was persecuted by the left. He went on to say the former sheriff does not deserve to serve a single day in jail. And let's keep this in mind. Jenkins is the latest pardon that Trump has given to loyal supporters. In April, Mr. Trump pardoned embattled Nevada Republican Michele Fiore, who was awaiting sentencing on federal charges that she used money meant for a statue honoring a slain police officer instead for personal items, including plastic surgery.
Well, let me give you a little breaking news here. My colleague Ken Vogel just reported on a third pardon, a former health executive named Paul Walsack, who was pardoned for a series of tax crimes after his mother lobbied for his pardon and raised millions of dollars for Trump's campaign. What we're seeing here, to put it really bluntly, is Trump and company redefining criminality. These are not people who are sort of marginal. We're not talking about, for instance, J6 rioters who sort of lingered outside the building, as some in Trump's camp have argued. We're talking about people who committed gross crimes.
Yeah, like big white-collar crimes.
Gave away deputy sheriff's badges for thousands of bucks. There are 2 FBI.
How much you want to bet that that's what Donald Trump is doing with his pardons? You know, I mean, not that I'm insinuating anything, but I mean, like, because he did the whole little golden immigration card. I forgot how much it cost or if it's even real. But essentially, what if he's doing that? What if Michele Fiore, was like, okay, President, I need the pardon now. How much can I give you? Or, or what, how many times can I go visit Mar-a-Lago? It's weird.
Including to 2 FBI undercover agents. And this guy Walsack, who my colleague Ken Vogel just wrote about, used tax proceeds, stuff that was supposed to go to the government, to fund this extravagant lifestyle. So be very clear here. The President of the United States, who ran on a law and order platform, is essentially saying these are people who committed crimes, but they didn't commit crimes because they were loyal to me in one way or another.
Well, and you mentioned Michele Fiore as one of those that the president has pardoned those supporters.
These people committed crimes. They were, in some instances, in which evidence was presented, and they were convicted by a jury of their peers. These are not people who are blameless under the law, who were...
But, like, why does she keep saying that it's a conspiracy against her? Like, that doesn't... Who's everyone on the conspiracy? Everyone in on the conspiracy is like, yeah, we gotta, take down Michele Fiore at any cost and, make up things about her. And, it just, I don't know. It's weird.
Persecuted. And by the way, this notion that the Biden Justice Department weaponized to go after Jenkins, for instance, is total nonsense. I mean, this guy committed clear acts of bribery, and this was a nonpartisan case. But again, as you pointed out, this gets back to sort of the original act of the Trump administration. Let's not forget, the first big thing that Trump did on day one was to issue blanket clemency for the Capitol rioters. And again, as I've said before, some of these, there was a sense even from folks who prosecuted that towards the end, some of the final prosecution of people who committed lesser offenses, should absolutely everybody have gone to trial? No. But Trump didn't differentiate. And the most violent, aggressive people who ransacked the Capitol were also pardoned. And one last thing. Who is the pardon attorney right now? It is Ed Martin, the former interim U.S. attorney in Washington, D.C., who wasn't able to get confirmed by the Senate over concerns that he was too close to the J6 rioters. And he is now the pardon attorney in the Department of Justice.
That's crazy.
Of course, the big question is for voters what to do with this information as you start to see the patterns. Glenn Thrush of the New York Times, thank you so much for joining us on CBS News 24/7.
Crazy. So yeah, the Trump pardons continue, and I suspect that they're not going to stop. Let's go into Governor Gavin Newsome. And also, I think he might be trying to run for president. I'm not sure. But let's just start by reading from Cal Matters by Jeannie Kwan. Google follows Newsome in reducing support for California local news. Great. Google will pay $5 million less than it promised to fund Google will pay $5 million less than it promised to fund a fund intended to help struggling California news outlets stay afloat. Less than a year after committing to pay $15 million, the company will now pay $10 million to the initiative to fund local news, which will be distributed among California news publishers, according to the Office of Assembly member Buffy Wicks, who's been involved in setting up the program. The announcement Wednesday came after Newsom proposed cutting the state's own share of the first-year commitment to $10 million from $30 million. Jeez. As California faces a $12 billion budget deficit. Okay. $10 million is really going to make a drop in the bucket for $12 billion. The new California Civic Media Fund will be administered by California State Library, which will set up a board of publisher representatives to determine how to distribute it with the goal of sustaining and enhancing community news coverage in California. According to a news release from Wick's office, the library will also assess the regional availability of news coverage across California to help divvy up the money. Okay. Library officials will oversee the fund's public dollars to provide public oversight, while Google's share of the money will be housed in a separate nonprofit. Okay. Sustaining local journalism will take all of us, government, philanthropy, and the tech sector stepping up together, said Wicks. Proponents of the new program described the money as seed funding. Google and California both pledge much more. In their original agreement, the state and Google each agreed to pay $10 million into the fund annually for 4 more years, for a total of $125 million. The funding pledge amounts to less than half that was promised for the program's first year. The amount paid in future years could still change depending on the state budget. The tech titan agreed to the deal last August, having spent a record sum to lobby California's lawmakers as they considered 2 bills that would have forced the company to pay to use news outlets' published content. No way. That sounds like it could have been a pretty good idea. California tried to make Google pay news outlets. The company cut a deal that now includes funding AI. Gross. All right. Advocates for publisher and local news have honed in on the search engine bay's ability to profit from links and snippets of news content as in one factor that has diminished the news industry nationwide over the past 2 decades. California has lost 1/3 of its newspapers since 2005 in a trend experts say worsens civic engagement, polarization, and misinformation. Hell yeah. That's why we're on here on Twitch trying to promote civic engagement, stop polarization, or at least lessen it, and definitely not spreading misinformation. In exchange for lawmakers killing the bill last year, the company agreed to instead help the state start a fund that would have given $125 million to news outlets across California over 5 years. Damn, so that means that $125 million is probably a lot less than what they were going to get that they were going to have to pay to use the news outlets' published content. Like, that's probably a lot less than what they were looking at, with that bill that would have forced them to, pay for their news content or pay the publishers. In exchange, the company will continue paying those grants, Wick said Wednesday. Proponents of the legislation include news publishers, journalists, unions, and local news advocates. Criticize the handshake deal for being too modest. That's what I just said. By contrast, one of the bills would have garnered about $500 million a year in fees from Google. There you go. That's like, and other platforms that link to news content to pay for a tax credit for local journalists. Wix, the author of the bill, which would have required Google, Meta, and other platforms to negotiate payments directly with the news outlets, said the deal was the best possible outcome in the face of stiff tech industry opposition. Okay. When Newsome announced the state would reduce its share of funding for the new program last week, it gave Google the opportunity to do the same. The company had only agreed to put money into the fund as a match to state dollars. Jeez. So it's like, that's it. Crazy.
Now, Newsome says California is facing a $12 billion deficit due to what he calls economic uncertainty, including the president's changing tariff policies and a volatile stock market. The governor says that could reduce the state's revenues by $16 billion in the coming years.
California is under assault. The United States of America, in many respects, is under assault because we have a president that's been reckless in terms of assaulting those growth engines. Best to describe this as a Trump slump all across the United States. It's reflected in adjustments by every independent economist, by leading banks.
One Republican senator called it the Gavin gap. To balance the budget, the governor is proposing freezing enrollment in state-funded health care for undocumented.
No way. No, they can't freeze enrollment in state-funded health care for undocumented people. That's going to be horrible.
Immigrants.
Just a year ago, that Governor Newsome granted Medi-Cal access to low-income immigrants without legal status. That program.
See, why would you do that and then take it away? That's awful. God damn it, Gavin Newsome.
Now being scaled back.
Governor Newsome just announced that Medi-Cal will stop covering undocumented immigrants for free. The cost will be $100 a month for adults.
What the frick? Having a health insurance plan that's costing you $100 a month? No, that's crazy.
I thought the governor supported immigrants, she says, echoing many others in the waiting room. But one patient outside thinks it's not necessarily a bad idea. She supports the fact that under the governor's proposal, children could still enroll even after the January 2026 deadline. After that, all undocumented immigrants will still be covered for emergencies. But those who don't enroll before January will be uncovered for expenses like prescription drugs and doctor's visits. We're not being treated fairly. This American-born citizen who we helped to the eye clinic says no one should be struggling to get medical help.
Wow. It was bigger than expected, but I don't know. You can't just give somebody something and then take it away from them, especially when they don't have the right to really vote on it. That's crazy.
Governor Newsome says the state will sue the Trump administration to keep our state's environmental rules in place. KTV's John Krinjak joining us in studio with more on this brewing legal battle, John.
Yeah, guys, I think very few people are surprised to see the governor pushing back on this. But as for actually how it will play out in the court system, well, that's an open question.
We'll be judged to have stood up at this moment.
Governor Gavin Newsome announcing he and State Attorney General Rob Bonta will sue the president yet again.
I'll be seeing the Trump administration in court again.
after the Republican-controlled Senate voted Thursday to undo California's first-in-the-nation rule banning the sale of new gas-powered cars by 2035, as well as to roll back the state's emissions standards. But California environmental advocates sounding the alarm.
Eliminating California's clean car and truck rules is harmful to both public health and the environment.
And it's also illegal.
Bonta and Newsome arguing the Senate's move, backed by Trump, is an inappropriate use of what's known as the Congressional Review Act.
The president lacks the authority to push his anti-California agenda.
They want to pollute more, want to sack your kids and grandkids, steal their future. That's why we're confident in our lawsuit.
Local legal expert David Levine says it's likely this legal battle between Newsome and Trump will end up at the Supreme Court.
We're here, firm in our resolve at this moment.
On the roof of a state building overlooking the Sacramento skyline, California leaders announced their latest lawsuit they say is in the name of clean air.
Wait, Trump's GOP is making America smoggy again? It's already too long of a slogan. To say GOP is making America smoggy again, or I don't know. This is cringe. I think this is cringe. I don't know, chat. You let me know if Trump's GOP is making America smoggy again. Just say that Trump is making California smoggy again, and I think that'll draw enough attention for conservatives too.
But California voters never voted for the state's ban on the sale of new gas-powered cars. Neither did California's legislature. The move was done by Governor Gavin Newsom's administration in 2020 when he signed an executive order and allowed the unelected California Air Resources Board to set the rule. He has said it's their right, but I asked if that process played a role in the federal government's action.
Could there have been maybe more buy-in and maybe not be in the situation had the process been different?
Well, we had buy-in from people all across the United States. We had buy-in from large states, big states. We had buy-in from the public. You saw the buying opportunities. We maintain a flexible framework. We were engaged in good faith conversation on that flexibility. We're not ideological about this.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with Gavin on this and say that if you own an electric vehicle, you are for this. That's including all the Tesla people out there, and especially those Cybertruck mother effers. You know, like, come on. If you bought an electric vehicle, you are making a statement, okay? I'm gonna totally gatekeep that. It's just like the South Park farts episode.
Yeah, it's like San Francisco is more of a European city, like Paris or Milan.
I've started to enter the smug. I'm about a quarter mile in. Can you give me an EL? You must be nearing Union Square.
I actually like EVs. I drive an EV myself, but Californians should be able to.
Look, it's Representative Kevin Kiley. And of course he doesn't actually say his name here, does he? Oh my God, he was one of the 4 actual California Republicans that wanted to ban the California shedding its own emission rules.
To drive the car of their choice, that choice shouldn't be made for them.
Republican California Congressman Kevin Kiley wrote the resolution that's now on the president's desk. He notes the overwhelming majority of California drivers have gas-powered cars.
This ban, which is completely unworkable, which takes away basic rights of Californians, is the last thing that our state needs. And so thankfully we've had a bipartisan effort here to restore some common sense.
As I said, in every instance, I'll give you a specific example. We had a numeric goal of 1 million electric vehicles. We exceeded that goal on our timeline. We had a 1.5 million electric vehicle goal for 2025. We blew past that 2 years early. In just 2 years, we went from 1 million to 2 million electric vehicles. This market is radically changing. You've seen the global market. It's over a quarter of the global market, all the sales. 50%.
Yeah, I mean, he's right there. Like, people are buying EVs. People want EVs. Whether they want them because they want, you know, to kiss the boots of Elon, or because they're fart-sniffing smug people that are saving the world, they're still, EVs are popular.
In countries like China, the market is moving in this direction. It's the backbone of autonomy. All that energy and entrepreneurialism, all that mobility.
Okay. So since we saw Representative Kevin Kiley talk about it, let's check in with with Representative Jay Olbernolte. Dang, look at that. I show Speed and Hassan. Such a cute picture. Where does he talk about the House of Representatives? Whoa, he said Medicaid is on an unstable trajectory. Today, I support legislation to strengthen Medicaid and ensure that it's there for people who depend on it, children, pregnant women, individuals with disabilities, and seniors. We're securing the future of the program by increasing accountability so it can continue to serve as a critical safety net for. Okay, so he just doesn't want Medicare to cover like adults, single adults. U.S. Representative Mark Takano of Riverside repeatedly critiqued the Trump administration and said the nation is in the midst of a constitutional crisis, likening it to early stage cancer at a Tuesday night town hall in Riverside. Like any cancer, if we don't catch it early and confront it aggressively, it will spread. Takano told the crowd of about 250 Yazmali villages community centers in his opening speech while addressing Trump's defiance of multiple court orders. Minutes later, Takano said a concerted effort to make the president's actions increasingly unpopular locally and nationwide would be the chemotherapy required to force the administration to change its policies. Good luck with that. The cancer has spread way too bad. It's impossible to fix now. You just have to I don't know. Just we have to amputate, I think. Takano criticized a number of Trump policies, including recent tariff spending cuts and aggressive deportation practices. The congressman's central point, however, was that in order to help Democrats counter the Trump administration's action, a united and engaged public loudly voicing its disapproval in the coming months would be needed. The crowd, in return, mostly applauded and supported Takano's stance throughout the night as he addressed their concerns, with only one audience member thanking the congressman for his dedication to our country. We're on your side, another shouted. However, Takano also faced criticism from some attendees who felt Democrats failed to deliver concise messaging to unite voters or adequately push back against Trump's policies, pointing Senator Chuck Schumer of New York to vote on a Republican written funding bill. That was when they were trying to shut down the government. And cross rallies by Representative AOC and Bernie Sanders as two opposing actions taken by party members. Oh yeah, we're at stage 3 cancer levels, definitely getting to stage 4. I would say if Trump pulls a third term, then it's done. It's done. It's gone all the way to the bones and the brain, and we just need a whole new body now, or to be uploaded into, whatever. I'm trying to think of that one Black Mirror episode, but okay. We are depending on you to be in Washington to do more than push back. Takano said Democrats do have some tools in their arsenal to combat the administration, while admitting that he doesn't currently have a solution to every issue, though he said he has plans to host more community meetings in the coming months to continue the conversation with his constituents. That's great, because as we've seen, Republicans have, or at least Republicans in California, have not been doing that. They've just been shutting down and I don't want to talk to anyone because I don't want to get, called out. What a picture of this dude. I know he's gay for real. I think he's Japanese, or at least Japanese descendants, but he's pretty flamboyant for sure. All right. I think I'm just going to end the stream, but at least we covered the Gavin Newsome stuff and the Michele Fiore because it was just so freaking hilarious. We'll be okay. All right. I hope everyone has a great rest of your day, but we'll be back tomorrow. All right. Everyone have a good night.